So we're going to go ahead and start that skyline. And as you can see, I did go through a little tiny bit with some gesso, and I went over these little edges just to make sure that they were a little bit cleaner, so that my blue actually covers them up. So for my sky, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use two different color blues. And these are different than my blues over here. They are two very different ones. And then the mop brush. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go through with a detail brush. And I am going to make sure that that edge along that skyline gets taken care of. Because I don't want to get super, super close to it with my mop brush. So I just want to make sure that it has a nice, clean edge on it. So I'm going to go ahead and go through here and do all my edge work. Okay, so it's a good idea to keep in mind while you're working on that skyline edge that this is a good opportunity. If you happen to miss any space over here in your colors, you can go back in and make sure they are not white. Even if they do look like the sky up here on the top, at least they're not going to be white and they're not going to stand out compared to everything else. Okay, so what we're going to do now that we have our edge complete is you're going to go in with that mop brush and the same color. Okay, and then we're going to do circles again over the entire sky area. And as you can see, because of the circles, that's why I actually did this edge first, because when you're doing the circles, it's a little bit harder to control getting really close to that edge. So that's why I went in and did my edge first. I didn't want to mess it up and go like way over the top of my landscape on accident. So that's kind of why I just did it first, to get it out of the way. So there was a really nice edge in there that I didn't have to worry about getting nice and detailed with my mop brush. Okay, so just go in here and just finish all of it in your nice little circles. Okay, and once you've got it all completed, you're going to move on to your next color. And mine are two very nice light blue colors. One is a sky blue and the other one is just kind of like an aqua-y, turquoisey, light blue color. Okay, and then you're just going to go back in and you're just going to go right over the top of that other color. And you're going to do it in very loose circles. You're not doing the entire thing like you were in the last layer. You're just doing small little circular motions over the top of that. This one is not meant to cover up the entire surface. This one is just meant to add in some depth and some layering here. So you don't want to cover up the entire background surface. Okay. Okay, and then once I've got a light little swirl of that secondary color on there, I'm going to go back in with my first color. And I'm just going to add in some really nice light swirls over the top of that secondary one again. And like I said, this is just to give it some really cool depth and dimension so that your sky doesn't look all plain and boring and two-dimensional compared to your landscape down there. You don't want one to look really childish and, you know, non-dimensional, and then the other one to have really cool texturing and color effects down here. You don't want them to be mismatched. So that's kind of why I'm just doing very light little swirls. And you can do this as many times as you want, just to make sure that you get those layers like you want them. So you can go back in with the other color now. I'm just going back over it with that lighter color. I'm just doing swirls. And the great thing about the mop brush is that it is actually going to spread out those colors, especially if you're doing a really, really light brushing on it. I'm not pushing very hard. I'm pushing very, very lightly, actually. So I'm barely pushing on it at all. And that's going to cause it to actually branch out and spread and kind of blend in a little bit more than just randomly adding color to it. Okay. So there's my sky. So now it's got a bunch of really cool layers in there. So you can see both colors, but they're layered on top of each other. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on and do the exact same thing from start to finish. Line down on the bottom and then layers over here on the top on the other two pieces. Okay, so now that we're done with our main parts, we're going to go back in and start doing some detailing on our landscapes here. It's probably one of my favorite parts. I mean, I do love these already, but this next step I really love. So just in case, before we move on, if you're having any problems with your acrylic up here on the top, if it's pulling off in spots or it's just taking off the color or anything like that, put a layer on, let it dry. It's an acrylic, so it only takes a couple of minutes. Let it dry though, and then do your next color. Let it dry a little bit, do your next color. That's the way to get over if it's having any issues with that. It's just a little too wet when you're trying to swirl the next color on, so it's pulling off color maybe. So that's just a way to get around that. I will see you back here for some fun detailing for our landscapes.